Welcome to the CPA Canada CRA SR&ED webinar. Thank you for your time today. We're happy that you could make time to join us. We certainly hope that you will find the webinar valuable. My name is Susan Bishop, and I'm the chair of the CPA Canada SR&ED Committee. I'm an FCPA FCA. I'm also the Canadian leader of Ernst & Young's SR&ED tax team and a member of EY's Global R&D leadership team. I've been working full-time in the area of SR&ED and other tax incentives since 1992. If you're not familiar with the CPA Canada SR&ED Committee, it was formed in 2014 and is comprised of experienced SR&ED tax practitioners across the country. We've worked closely with CRA SR&ED leadership over the years, both at the federal and provincial levels, identifying and discussing issues and making recommendations for improvement of the SR&ED program on behalf of CPAs. The development of this webinar came out of our committee discussions. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Lorraine Redekop and members of her leadership team. Lorraine was appointed as Director General of the CRA's Scientific Research and Experimental Development Directorate in July of 2021. In this role, Lorraine leads the delivery of the SR&ED program, which is the largest government program supporting business research and development in Canada. She also leads the Film and Media Tax Credits program. Prior to joining the SR&ED Directorate, Lorraine was Director General of Ministerial Services and Operations at the CRA from 2017 until 2021, where she oversaw a wide range of functions, including media relations, parliamentary and cabinet affairs, public opinion research, and linguistic services. Lorraine will introduce her team a bit later. Today's agenda has two sections. Lorraine will first present an update on the SR&ED tax credit program, and we will then move into a question and answer session. We canvassed the SR&ED committee members for key themes for today's questions. This session assumes everyone has a working knowledge of the basics of the SR&ED tax credit program. For those of you who are SR&ED specialists, our hope is to go into some of the more technical areas on a future webinar or conference. Without further ado, Lorraine, welcome and over to you.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for inviting me and the team here today to give you an overview of the SR&ED program. I'm very, very happy to be able to share with you some of the changes that we're making to transform the program. And I look forward to the conversation that we're going to have today. So moving along, I'm going to ask that we go straight to slide 3. And as you mentioned, Susan, SR&ED does continue to be the largest Government of Canada program supporting R&D work in Canada. On average, the program provides more than $3 billion a year in tax credits to more than 16,000 businesses through about 20,000 claims. And every year, about 2,200 of these claims are submitted by first-time claimants in the program. I wanted to say also that at CRA, we recognize how important the SR&ED program is as a source of financial support for businesses, especially now in the post-COVID-19 economic recovery. Next slide, please. So here we have some maps that just outline the profile of claimants across the country. And as you can see from the first map on the left-hand side, most SR&ED claims continue to be received by the CRA in Ontario, followed by the West, and then Quebec, and then the Atlantic region. SR&ED program, we currently administer credits for most provinces and territories across the country, and with the exception of Alberta and Quebec. However, for Alberta and Quebec, we still review the scientific portion of those claims for the eligibility purposes. Next slide, please. We wanted to provide you with some numbers around the current claimant profile in the SR&ED program, just to give you a sense of what that currently looks like. And you'll see on the left-hand side, sector of research. So in the 2021 and 2022 fiscal year, the vast majority of SR&ED claims came from the software development sector, followed by the electrical and mechanical engineering sectors. SR&ED was also one of the main support sources for businesses conducting biomed R&D in Canada. Small businesses with a gross annual income, I should say, of less than $4 million a year submit more than 60% of claims annually. So last year, SR&ED supported more than 12,000 small businesses. Next slide, please. I wanted to talk for a moment about our service standards. So in total, approximately 89% of all SR&ED claims that are received are accepted as filed by the program. About 7.5% of claims are accepted after modifications following the review process, and only about 3% of claims are found to be ineligible. In terms of our service standards, our objective is to meet our service standards at least 90% of the time. And so of the SR&ED claims that are received, around 97% of the claims that we receive are accepted as filed and are processed within 60 days. About 98% of the refundable claims that we received that get reviewed are processed within around 180 days. Next slide, please. So as we talked about earlier, SR&ED is transforming to better meet businesses' needs. And over the past few years, we've embarked on a very ambitious transformation to make the SR&ED program more service-focused. And this is really in keeping with the CRA's broader people-first approach. Our top priority is to make it easy for eligible businesses to access all of the SR&ED credits to which they are entitled. We want to create a strong upfront service experience for businesses and support them in navigating the SR&ED program from pre to post claim. And we also want businesses to be able to assess upfront whether they're eligible for SR&ED credits, how they can apply, and how to claim the credits so that they can submit compliant claims right from the outset. So this slide talks about the 4 areas that we're really focused on right now and over the next year or so. Firstly, in August 2021, we completed one of our first transformation initiatives, which was to simplify our eligibility guidelines. Another transformation initiative that we're very much focused on is around improving our content on Canada.ca to make it more user-friendly and easier for businesses to get the information that they're looking for. This last June, we launched our updated and interactive self-assessment and learning tool. This helps businesses to determine whether their projects qualify for SR&ED and to calculate their potential claim amounts. The updated tool is a lot more user-friendly than the tool we had previously, and it takes about 30 minutes for businesses to complete. Our redesigned web pages make it easy for businesses to find the information that they need to claim SR&ED credits. The changes that you currently see on Canada.ca represent the first phase of this redesign, and more updates are on the way over the coming months as we continue to develop content that is simpler and just easier for businesses to navigate. Part of our transformation also includes improving our capacity to identify and assess compliance risks early on in the claims process. We really want to focus our review resources on targeting the highest risk claims early for interventions, and this will make it easier for lower risk claims to pass easily through the system and to be processed faster. The final transformation initiative that's currently underway is the implementation of a nationalized claim review system. And this will make more efficient use of our resources to improve the timeliness and quality of the claim review process across the program. So as a result of this new system that we're moving to, SR&ED claims will be assigned nationally based on the availability of SR&ED specialists within the program who have the right experience and skill set to look at the particular claim, regardless of their geographical location. And so we expect that claimants will benefit from a more efficient and timely claim review intervention that will be more tailored to the specific needs of the business associated with that claim. Slide 9, please. So this slide talks about, I mentioned earlier, the eligibility guidelines that we had changed. And so this slide outlines this in a little bit greater detail. So we've simplified our eligibility of work guidelines to make it easier for businesses to find out whether their work could qualify for SR&ED. So now, instead of having claimants respond to 5 questions, the new guidelines focus on the how and the why requirements. These guidelines clarify the explanation of the definition of SR&ED in the Income Tax Act. And they're written using plain language as they promote greater transparency in our interactions with claimants and more fairness and more consistency in our assessment of claims. The new guidelines are not a departure from the 5 questions, and as you can see on the chart, they in fact cover the 5 questions, but they are consistent with the definition of SR&ED in the Income Tax Act, which remains unchanged. Next slide, please. I wanted to touch very briefly on some common issues and some trends that we're seeing in the program, and these are issues that can delay the review process. So the first is incomplete or incorrectly filed forms or lack of supporting documentation. We are seeing various sections that are omitted during the filing process, such as Schedule 508 and Form 566. And we're also seeing supporting information for claims not being available when requested. Secondly, we see sometimes where situations where ineligible expenses are claimed. So this includes salary and wages, provided in estimates, or ineligible salaries claimed, and management salaries being claimed as opposed to core technical people. Thirdly, other financial assistance not being disclosed. So government assistance such as IRAP or the wage subsidy is routinely underreported or unreported or underreported, and this adds to time on review files and overpayments. And then finally, disclosure of inaccurate information. So we have seen an increase in claims that are containing false information over the last year or two. Next slide, please. So next steps for the program, and as we look ahead, we will continue to expand collaborative efforts, our collaborative efforts with other government departments, as well as organizations across all industry sectors. We're going to strengthen our partnerships with departments such as Innovation and Science and Economic Development Canada to promote a coordinated approach to science, research, and innovation across the board. We're also going to continue our Industry Communities of Practice initiative, which is a collaboration with organizations that support specific industry sectors. This will allow us to gain a broader understanding of these sectors' needs and challenges. And our goal really is to design customized approaches that meet sector-specific needs. As stated in the 2022 federal budget, the SR&ED program will undergo a review, and we will be supporting the Department of Finance in undertaking this review. At this time, I don't have any further details that I can provide around the timing or format of the review, but we continue to be closely in contact with our colleagues at the Department of Finance on this matter. In the meantime, as I said earlier, we will be continuing to update and improve our digital presence on Canada.ca. And over the next few months, we will start to plan for the gradual return to in-person service visits for some reviews. Slide 12, please. We want to continue to engage with industries and stakeholders such as CPA Canada to obtain feedback that will allow us to further improve the program. And I wanted to say, Susan, your feedback and those of your colleagues is extremely valuable to us as we continue to transform SR&ED. And so I would encourage you to reach out to us. You can send any questions or comments to Lindsay Bilby. Her email address is here on this slide, and we very much welcome those. So Susan, that ends my presentation for now. I would be very happy to take questions, and I am joined today by 2 program experts in the SR&ED team, Mary Louise Graham and Qumber Rizvi. And I'm going to turn to each of them to introduce themselves a little bit, and then we will be happy to take questions. Thank you, Susan.
Hi there, I'm Mary Louise Graham. I'm the Director of the Program Policy and Industry Relations Group here at SR&ED.
And Qumber?
Hi, I'm Qumber Rizvi. I am the Assistant Director of SR&ED for the Western region.
Wonderful. Welcome, Mary Louise and Qumber, and thank you so much for that update, Lorraine. So as you said, let's move into the Q&A session now. The first question is for you, Mary Louise. We know that there are many seasoned field staff who will be retiring soon and expect that you, like all industries, have experienced some staff turnover. This makes training particularly important. What controls are in place to ensure consistency of the RTA training and adequacy of staff training?
Susan, maybe I'll just start by saying that we know that there's some staff movement that is normal, and that's just part of any program operation. And we recognize that consistency has been a really key factor that's been raised over the years by stakeholders. So we're very much, as I said earlier, putting our focus on trying to ensure a consistent experience for clients across the program. But Mary Louise can provide a little bit more detail around the specific training that she's undertaking to achieve this.
Thanks, Lorraine. So in order to strengthen consistency, we created what we called a new training solutions team. So they're involved in developing a standardized learning path used to train all our new as well as existing research and technology advisors. The National Learning Path uses a mix of on-the-job as well as formal training. And we have our seasoned field staff coaching and guiding new research and technology advisors in the assessment of SR&ED eligibility, claim reviews, as well as report writing. This is to strengthen consistency for both our new as well as existing staff. And earlier this year, we also piloted a new case studies model on eligibility for our staff. We brought together national expertise so that they could co-develop and co-deliver content to small virtual classes of field staff, which were deliberately mixed across regions. Employees were gave us positive feedback on how beneficial the training went, as well as the discussions, to be able to reach a common understanding of issues and expectations. And as the pilot went so well, we're developing more case studies going forward.
Qumber, along the same lines with respect to the consistency of training across the regions, the required documentation to support SR&ED claims has always been a point of discussion, given the variation in the amount and type of documents generated in different industries. What action has the Directorate taken to ensure the CRA is consistent in their expectations or requirements across geographies and within sectors?
Yeah, from the perspective of the claimant, the requirements haven't changed. There's a legislative requirement to keep books and records under subsection 231 of the Income Tax Act. And all claimants are required to keep supporting evidence to support their work and claimed expenditures. The requirements are same for all businesses in all sectors. However, there's a distinction between keeping supporting information and requesting it. Although claimants need to keep their records for their work, and CRA is not obligated to ask for everything, a request for supporting information is based on the nature of the claim itself and is determined on a case-by-case basis.
As a follow-up, are these industry-specific expectations or requirements being conveyed to claimants?
We recognize that the types of supporting evidence generated will vary in different industries. Work related to complex issues will always need to be supported in order to be allowed, regardless of the industry.
The next question is with respect to audit timeframes and service standards. Lorraine, you talked about service standards in your presentation. Can you talk about situations where a file has exceeded standards? You know, we've been seeing some reviews taking a particularly long time. For example, a client received their proposal letter with the SR&ED eligibility report attached last month. However, the report was actually dated in April of 2022. There'd been no communication at all since the review meeting earlier in the year. Is there any additional monitoring or priority given to the open files that have gone past the target timeframes?
Thanks for the question, Suzanne. I can say certainly we can't get into specifics about any case or claim, but that does sound like an exceptional situation. I'm going to turn to Qumber for the field perspective on that, because I think he'll be able to provide a greater detail and a richer response to that question. So Qumber, can you address that, please?
Sure, Lorraine. The main factors that affect our processing times are whether or not we accept a claim as filed at the tax center, provide a service like the FTCAS, or conduct a review. Services take less time than reviews, and claims that are accepted as filed take even less time to process. For reviews, the main factors affecting processing times are size of the claim, complexity of the issues being reviewed, and adjustments to the claims. Large claims and claims with adjustments tend to take longer times to review. Projects that are reviewed and deemed ineligible may take less time to complete than partial adjustments. Additional factors affecting processing time for reviews are difficulty in contacting the claimant, setting up meetings, collecting information from the claimant.
Thanks, Qumber. The next topic is with respect to the audit program initiatives. Lorraine, can you please provide an update on the current initiatives related to SR&ED reviews? We understand that some of them were pilot projects. Perhaps you could share any findings regarding the effectiveness of these initiatives.
Sure, thanks, Susan. Well, certainly, as you say, we have piloted a number of different initiatives in the program over the last couple of years. One thing that I want to really emphasize is that all of this is really designed to, again, facilitate the objective that I talked about earlier, which is to make it easy for eligible businesses to access credits. And so we have taken a couple of approaches of just experimenting a little bit with pilots. At the end of the day, we want to put initiatives in place that serve businesses and help them to access the program. And so that's where you have seen some of these new initiatives. We're currently reevaluating some of these pilots and we'll be determining whether we're going to implement them as part of the regular operations or whether we'll maybe discontinue them. That's an ongoing process. But there again, I'm going to turn to Mary Louise for a little bit more detail on some of them.
Thanks, Lorraine. And as you mentioned earlier, Lorraine, our goal is to improve the service journey for our clients. We want to ensure that we're using our resources effectively, and as part of strengthening our efforts on service, we're focusing on pre-claim processes as well as first-time claimants. We're also focusing on better online tools and resources to give clients access to the materials they need to educate themselves. We've also expanded our regional outreach efforts and are offering ongoing webinars on the program. So please do consider that any client can request one-on-one meetings with our regional outreach coordinators. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary Louise. And back to you with another question. We're happy to hear that reviews will both be virtual and in person going forward. We believe this is a positive development because in certain circumstances, without site visits or plant tours, it's more difficult for the RTAs to accurately determine eligibility. Can a claimant request that the review meetings be in person?
Yes, as Lorraine mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are returning to in-person visits and working out at this time what is the best approach for those as part of our ongoing workload coming on in the future. And certainly, a claimant can indicate that an in-person visit is their preference. And this is really one of the considerations that we would take into account when we determine if an in-person visit is needed.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That leads me to ask about best practices for communication and in particular sharing of documentation with CRA. Lorraine, we've had clients who've experienced difficulty in sharing documentation via My Business account. Despite involving CRA IT support, the issue persisted, and there didn't seem to be an alternative method for getting the documentation to the reviewers. They said we couldn't drop it off at the CTSO or TSO since the staff were all working remotely and there'd be no way for them to get the information. We also understand that the secure email process is no longer an option either. Are there any plans to provide alternative ways to provide the CRA with requested documentation?
Thanks, Susan. So I'll maybe just touch briefly on the My Business account issue and then turn to Qumber for the latest information from the field. We are aware that there were some technical issues with My BA at times, but that those have been resolved. And so Qumber, can you provide us with the latest information from the field around best practices for submitting and exchanging documentation?
Sure, Lorraine. The use of My Business account remains the most secure way to share electronic information with the CRA. In fact, many businesses prefer this method. We continue to support the use of mail through Canada Post or private courier, and the use of toll-free tax lines. There are alternative ways to provide information to the CRA, but there's some limitations. For example, review cases that were created on or before October 19th, 2020 support the two-way email communication functionality. Using two-way communication, reviewers are not allowed to send protective information such as a social insurance number, taxpayer's date of birth, things like that. And they will not provide their personal or CRA email addresses. However, reviewers can accept protected information from claimants, including invoices, contracts, financial statements, for example, through their review management software. We encourage all claimants and their representatives to request assistance from our review team to find the best solution for sharing protective information.
Thanks for elaborating. And, as discussed, there's been many personnel changes in the field offices. Along those lines, could you please provide an updated list with names and contact information for the SR&ED management teams in the different locations across the country? The website only gives addresses and phone numbers, but no contact names.
Yeah, sure. I can take this one. So there's a slide that we have in our presentation that shows all the assistant directors for the nationally. I am the assistant director for the Western region. Renee McTaggart is the assistant director for the Ontario region. Connie Breezy is the assistant director for the Quebec region, and Joseph Abihana is the assistant director for the Atlantic region.
I'd now like to ask a few questions with respect to eligibility requirements. Mary Louise, your new guidelines on the eligibility of work for SR&ED have been in place for over a year now. We've seen positive reactions as the why, how approach seems to be easier for claimants to understand. Are you seeing any change in the types of projects that are being submitted as a result?
Well, as you mentioned, Susan, that the eligibility of work guidelines were just released in August of 2021. So right now, it's still too early to see what the shifts will be in claims that we have are submitted. We'll certainly be looking forward to any trends over the coming year. So stay tuned, and we hope to have this information in the months to come.
Great. And Qumber, what's the feedback been from the field staff on this new approach?
Well, we did hear feedback that the old eligibility requirements were too complex. The objective of the new eligibility of work guidelines was to streamline the information that had to be submitted. We wanted to reduce the administrative burden on both the claimant and our reviewers by decreasing the duplicate information that was needed to address the previous separated expected responses. To address this, our work included 3 goals. 1, simplification. Answering the 5 questions created a lot of redundancy, so we created clearer and simpler explanation of eligibility work requirements to help claimants self-assess. This, in turn, reduced the administrative burden on claimants and on our reviewers. 2, clarification. The previous terms and definitions were too rigid, not reflective of our industry use. The new guidelines use plain language. We have removed ambiguous terminology. 3, improved transparency. We created a new updated project eligibility report, an improved product that is more streamlined and communicates the outcomes of our research and technology advisor the outcome of our research and technology advisor work report, summarizing and finalizing the findings. And consistency. We have developed new national training, new format for improved adult learning with hands-on eligibility case studies. We discuss real examples and expected results to strengthen consistency and reach a common understanding of issues and expectations.
Thanks, Qumber. Mary Louise, Lorraine talked about the self-assessment and learning tool, commonly referred to as the SALT tool, which we understand is not binding. Is that correct?
Absolutely right. The results obtained after you complete the self-assessment learning tool, they're not binding. It's important to note, though, that the results are dependent on the accuracy of the information that is entered. The self-assessment learning tool helps you understand if your work may be eligible for SR&ED tax incentives, and also estimates the amount of investment tax credits that you may be entitled to receive when you file your income tax return for a particular year.
Does the CRA have access to the information that's submitted?
No. The self-assessment learning tool does not automatically save or share your information with the Canada Revenue Agency. Though once you've completed the self-assessment, there is an option for you to save your SALT summary on your own device. If you wish to speak to an SR&ED specialist afterwards, you can choose to send us your SALT results by uploading the document in My Business account. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the results obtained with the self-assessment learning tool are not binding.
Thanks, Mary Louise. Lorraine, a question for you. In your presentation, you identified categories of common issues that CRA is seeing in claims. Do you have any additional initiatives or tool plans that will assist in correcting these common errors?
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, again, I'll turn to Qumber in a moment on that, but I think one of the most effective tools that we have around this is really outreach and education. And so one key factor that we're putting into place is, as I said earlier, better information on Canada.ca about the program, so that we can, for example, better inform businesses about the kinds of documentation that they should be capturing and keeping in terms of their records and so on and so forth. But also outreach around how the claims process works, how to submit a claim, really with a view that we want to support businesses right from day one in submitting claims that can be compliant and can be accepted as filed, so that we can process them within that 60-day window that I talked about earlier. But Qumber, can you elaborate on the outreach work that we're doing on this front?
Sure, Lorraine. So we're focusing on education over the upcoming year through increased outreach webinars with our regional outreach coordinators who can speak to many of these issues and provide one-on-one meetings with potential claimants to help them avoid some of the mistakes from the get-go. They also offer detailed financial presentation that walks claimants through the process. As previously discussed, claimants can also use our self-assessment learning tool and request a free pre-claim consultation to discuss their claim with an SR&ED specialist. They can also refer to our updated web pages to get information that they need.
Okay, great. One question, and I think the presentation addressed it, but perhaps you could elaborate. We are seeing more claims being reviewed outside of their province of origin. For example, where a reviewer from Ontario may be reviewing a Nova Scotia file. Are we likely to see more of that?
Yes, the short answer is yes. And as I talked about earlier, we are moving to that nationalized claim review system that I spoke about earlier. And really the objective is to best align our expertise in the program with the type of field that's being undertaken in the project that we get in the claim. So we want to make sure that we've aligned that. One, I think, concern that we had heard from businesses over the years was that the reviewer in the claim may not have been as well aligned with the science and the work as could have been the case. And so moving to a nationalized system allows us to best leverage the expertise that we have in the program and make sure that we're aligning that with the type of claim that we're seeing. And it's the same thing, in fact, for the financial side as well. We want to make sure that we're leveraging our very experienced audit capacity around the most complex types of reviews, and again, as I said earlier, having those lower risk claims pass through more easily through the system. So it really is just a model that allows us to look at what we have in terms of our review capacity, both on the science or technical and financial side, and best align that with the claims that we're seeing coming in. And what we hope to see is, again, more efficiency for claimants, and more consistency across the board, and really just a better experience overall with the review process in the program. But there again, we'll look forward to feedback on that, Susan. So as we roll that out over the next year, very much welcome comments and feedback as businesses and claimants experience this new process, and we'll look forward to hearing how that's working for businesses.
Thanks, Lorraine. It makes me think that although the SR&ED program, or the federal government in particular, has provided, tax assistance for R&D since 1944 in Canada, the SR&ED programs existed, in its current form for approximately 35 years. I think we all really appreciate that you're striving to improve the administration of the program to make it more efficient and more effective, and we will definitely provide you with feedback to help. I think we all agree that the strategic objective of incenting companies to do more R&D in Canada is essential to Canada's future economic growth. So that concludes today's webinar. Lorraine, Mary Louise, and Qumber, thank you so much for your time answering the questions, and Lorraine for your update presentation. We really appreciate it. Please note that we will continue to keep CPA members up to date on what we're doing in the area of SR&ED through CPA Canada's tax news page and blog. I would also like to thank the viewers for taking time to join us. We hope you found it informative. It's been a pleasure being with all of you today.